This is not an advocacy event like this. The whole idea of this is to have an actual discussion about universal basic income. There's so many different ways that it can be put through, and there's some of them are quite pitfall-y, so we need to make sure we're having a proper discussion that everyone's engaged in that before somebody writes it, and there's a whole bunch of people that just decide to make up the bureaucracy, and it goes through the way that nobody really wanted it to, and there's a lot of ways of doing that. But there's one really, really good way of doing it, and there's a group that have been incredibly influential in that recently. I don't know if anyone's seen the news about the Fife. They're going to try and lobby the council. Was it they're going to lobby the council, Ben?
Yeah, we're meeting them in a month, and they're doing
yeah.
They want to highlight it in Fife. So.
Excellent. Well, I'll let Ben explain, but it's really, really exciting, and we should definitely be trying to support it as best we possibly can. So everyone, please, a warm welcome to Ben Simmons.
Right, thanks everyone for having me along. Thanks, Johnny, for inviting me. I was at one of these, the first one, some of you might have seen me before, so I might repeat myself a little bit, but tough. Sorry, it's me talking, not you, so it sucks for you. I'm here tonight from Citizens Basic Income Network Scotland. I'm a trustee there. We established ourselves back in February, but I'm going to be talking pretty much as myself. So if I go off piste or it gets a bit weird, that's a judgment on me and not on the rest, because they don't deserve that. So Christmas is 8 days away. If anyone wants to have a panic attack and run out and buy stamps, the shops are shut, you've missed your chance. But in that kind of spirit, I thought I'd do a sort of 12 days of basic income. Now, we're an organisation that wants to build a network. Networks need partners, and we firmly believe that there are many different groups for whom basic income isn't currently part of their thinking, who, if we could get the message out and reveal to them how it is it's going to help them achieve their own goals towards social justice, that they would get on board and help us raise awareness. So I'll run through a few of those. They're all on our website, if anyone wants to read one that's a bit more coherent, a bit more referenced, and a bit clearer and less rambly. Our website is cbin.scot, so cbin.scot. But if you can wait until I'm finished talking to stereo phones, I'd really appreciate that, because it's a bit scary. So a good place to start is what do we mean by basic income? I'm sure everyone here is, you may already know, you may have an idea, but it's really simple. It's a non-withdrawable, non-selective, universal payment. What that means is that everybody gets the same amount. It doesn't depend on your circumstances whatsoever. So as you get married, as you move in with other people, as you move in and out of work, doesn't matter at all. We're not even looking to see if that's happening to you, you're getting the same amount. It's non-withdrawable, so once you start finding work or earning, we don't take that away. I'll talk a bit about poverty trap and why that is. And it's universal. It's like the NHS. Everyone gets it. We believe that universality is key for a couple of reasons, and we'll talk about the difficulty of monitoring and means testing in a bit. But when benefits are universal and it's in everyone's interest, they're protected a lot better. We see the NHS being encroached upon at the moment, but at least it's there. And I think that if it was just a sort of means-tested health service, it would be under much greater threat. So let's go for the first reason. Let's talk about the poverty trap. We all agree, I think we all agree, that when you work, you should be paid. So work for an hour, get an hour's wage. When we talk about tax, people are always advocating for lower taxes at the top end, because they think that higher tax harms productivity. The highest tax threshold in Scotland just now is 47%, last time I looked, which wasn't today, so maybe I'm wrong, apologies for that. But when you consider the marginal deduction rate, which is the rate at which you lose your benefits when you start earning, that comes out to the government's own figures, can be as much as 96%. That's more than twice the top tax rate. That's the lowest earners in society paying twice the tax rate of the highest earners. And I can understand why that is, right? It's we'll talk a few times tonight. A few of the problems are superficially sensible. If you start from the principle social security is there when you need it, and when you don't need it, it's taken away. Well, that makes sense, right? It's just the trouble that it's really poorly implemented. And that idea doesn't work. We've got to walk away from that idea. So, how do we get rid of the poverty trap? It's quite simple. We provide people with a non-withdrawable income. So many people are in situations where they want to work and they can't work. You hear narratives about lazy, work-shy scroungers. You hear people who don't want to work. But the reality is that employment opportunities today are really crap in a lot of areas. For a start, unemployment's really high, which is a shame. I think there's twice as many applicants for jobs just now as there are jobs nationwide, and that's not even nationally distributed. Unemployment's 3 times as high in the most deprived areas of Scotland as it is in the least deprived. So they're avoiding jobs that don't exist, I don't know. The next bit is that if you want to move into work and you're going to take that hit of losing 96% of your income, or if you're only losing 75%, that's £2 an hour you're earning at a minimum wage job, and that brings with the cost of childcare and transportation, all that kind of stuff. Buying your own lunch from Sainsbury's instead of having your toast at home. It's what could be a bigger disincentive to work than that? So the poverty trap. If you believe that getting people to work is desirable, that they need to be earning, then you have to understand that removing the poverty traps is essential to do that. So if you don't want to take people's benefits away, you don't want to make that difficulty and put that barrier in front of them to work, you either have to get rid of all the benefits, and let's just have shitloads of slums, or we put one at a fixed level that doesn't go away. And now we're talking about basic income. I think that's the point at which anyone who advocates that into-work argument has to concede that the current system is broken. So let's talk about what an income would do to people if they're able to support themselves independently, because we need to talk about emancipation. I'm a strong believer that anyone who's interested in gender equality needs to be talking about basic income. We recognize that caring is something that should be paid if we're paying somebody else. So if you want someone to watch your kid, you pay them. But if you're watching your own, that's judged to be not worthy of pay. There was an analysis last year that concluded that unpaid care work is worth 10.8 billion to the Scottish economy, which is incredible, because that's just lost money that the carers aren't getting rewarded for. What it means when you're in a relationship or in a situation whereby you're caring but you're not able to work because of that, you get this massive power imbalance. I don't think anyone could advocate that a power imbalance in a relationship is a good thing. I mean, maybe you don't listen to the Archers like I do on a Sunday, but abusive relationships stem from the inability of someone being able to leave. You can get in a situation whereby in a family the husband can be earning, and they can be getting child benefit, which is money that goes to the child, but the wife and the mother doesn't have an income of her own, which is ridiculous. What a lack of freedom. And you're looking at carers that aren't being rewarded for their work and are forced to provide this care work that prevents them from earning. We're tacitly condoning a situation where not every Scottish citizen is as free as the others. Which again, if you care about equality and you're not talking about basic income, then we should have a chat, because it really kind of pushes towards there. So emancipation, poverty traps. Day 3 of the 12 days of basic income. I talk online with people a lot, which is a very polite way of saying argue with people a lot online. And when I was putting forward some arguments for basic income recently on the cesspit that is Reddit occasionally, someone described automation as a myth and as a meme, which isn't what I expected to hear back. But it's one of the most popular arguments for that, so it's worth addressing. Now, the difference between technological revolution around roboticization and artificial intelligence is it's not going to bring with it a net creation of jobs in the way that things like electricity did in the past. This is very easy to see and very easy to demonstrate in several ways. For example, if you move a production line from individuals working on it to robots working on it, you don't all of a sudden go, oh shit, I need to hire more people to be robot supervisors. That doesn't work. We're not robot supervisors. We get rid of them. Simply look at Tesco. How many people does it take to monitor 10 self-checkouts? I mean, for me, they have to come and help me every time, but, there's not 10 people there working on the checkout. Let's look at outsourcing. That's a pretty sort of contemporary way of almost like automation. As jobs become possible to do outside of this country by cheaper labor, that's what happens. That's already happening. You can't dispute that. You can't say, oh, automation is not going to lose jobs. I mean, the fact that you can do a job remotely over the phone or over the internet means that, places like Bangalore have got absolutely booming call center work, things like that. And that's driven by cost savings. Why would anyone believe that when something like software can replace white-collar work, that businesses wouldn't save money that way? I mean, it's coming. Like Google and IBM are inventing these artificial intelligences that can only read and digest thousands and thousands of documents and spit out to you what they'll say faster than you could read in a year. It's coming. Maybe it's not the argument that matters the most to you. I had an argument with some guy, and he was going on how it's not a big deal and it's going to be fine. At the end, it figured out that he was a software developer. And I was like, 10 minutes of my life I won't get back. But yeah, so automation's coming. It's already happening, and it's going to hit any job that can be done, even remotely, electronically and through software. So prepare yourselves. The fourth one is education. So what we're going to do with all those people when they're losing their jobs in automation. We already agree, we already recognize that education requires an income. We pay sixth formers to stay in school. We give loans. We used to give grants. We recognize that if you don't have an income, you can't go into education. Now, if we're going to talk about jobs being lost to automation, the need to kind of create new kinds of work to allow people to retrain who've just had their 30-year career deleted, we need to make education accessible. For that, we need to support people so they can actually go to classes, go to university, go to community college, just do what they need to do to reskill and learn new skills. Besides, personal fulfillment, we're not even really talking about what it feels like to live as a person in Scotland. We're talking about simple things like getting people back into the workforce. So even if you don't care about people's feelings and you don't care about the happiness of strangers, all you do is care about whether people are scrounging or not working. You've got to support that move into work. I strongly believe that basic income is like it should appeal to all ends of the spectrum. One of the things I focus on is that I find it very easily to think like an awful person. And I think it's too easy, to advocate from like a social justice point of view that basic income is right. And it is right. It is a socially responsible, socially just thing to do. But if that doesn't matter to you, because it doesn't matter to everyone, then there's still plenty of arguments why you should be in favour of it. So, education. The next bit is poverty. We talked about poverty traps, but it's called a poverty trap. It's not called a comfort trap. It's not called a luxury trap. Bloody brilliant being in poverty. I love it. It's fantastic. People on benefits do not currently receive enough benefits. The simple evidence for that is the proliferation of things like food banks. Usage of food banks is increasing. How can you point at that and go, but it's luxury, it's fantastic? I think the arguments made for people remaining out of work and remaining on benefits is only made by people who have never been out of work. When people say to me, if I had a basic income, I'd quit my job, I go, that says quite a lot about you. It says quite a lot about your job, none of which is very positive. You think about the value of work, and it's where most of us meet our partners, our boyfriends, our girlfriends, our husbands, our wives, the people we have children with. It's pensioners struggle a lot with retirement and isolation and loneliness. I was unemployed for quite a while, and it was rubbish. It wasn't chilling out on the couch all day. They didn't put primetime TV on at like 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Being unemployed is proper crap. Like, even like working for like rubbish wages is better than sitting on your ass all day. It's the worst feeling ever to wake up and realize that if you just didn't get out of bed, no one would notice and it wouldn't matter to anyone else. Like, the idea that people are going to opt into that as opposed to like interacting with other people and feeling purposeful is just obscene. And I just think it's very hard to have that discussion with someone without resorting to sort of physical demonstrations of how I feel about them. So we need to increase the level of support provided to people so that they're not choosing between heating and eating. We'll talk a bit about the problems that poverty brings with it, some of which are you can demonstrate numerically, and some of which are just sort of you can sort of demonstrate just through kind of a narrative chat, because when people are prejudiced against poor people, they're already believing several things about their environments. People talk about kind of levels of crime and the way that crime is driven by poverty, lack of property. You can use that argument and go, well, in that case, we need to reduce poverty, reduce crime. Well, you can look at the figures. It's indisputable that crime is linked to poverty, and it's in the most deprived areas of Scotland, the rate of crime is 21%. In the least deprived, it's 15%. The levels of unemployment in the most deprived are 3 times that of the least deprived. Situations like that, you can have generations of family unable to find fulfilling or regular work. I think it's 25% of people in the least deprived areas have got low or no qualifications, so how are they even going to get work? Where people don't have money to support themselves, they're forced to seek another way of supporting themselves, and that can't always be through legal means. If you accept that poverty is the driver of crime, you don't really even need to discuss the things that drive crime. You just need to discuss how we could reduce poverty. And it's not that simple. It's not a panacea. It's not a magic bullet. I'm not advocating that there's no sort of like personal agency and no sort of kind of individual choice that's leading to crime. Otherwise, we'd have no crime in the rich areas, and we clearly do. But if you want to reduce crime, reduce the costs of dealing with that crime, the social cost and the health service cost and the cost it takes to lock someone up, and the fact that a prison meal costs about 10 times what a school meal costs, you need to consider that if you care about crime rates, you should care about basic income. So we're talking about what it's like to live as someone and try and seek work. Let's talk a bit about cohabitation. And again, this is a great example of a policy that totally makes sense. You totally understand why it is that when you live on your own, it costs more to live because you've got one person paying the bills. So when you live on your own, you get paid a little bit more than you do per capita when you live with someone else. Because that's economies of scale, both of you are split in the heating, things like that. So you go, it's more like an extra payment if you've got extra costs. Totally makes sense. But it's actually, again, really counterproductive because you're asking individuals to take a financial hit to live together. And all the benefits that come from together, like closer family units, in my own life, I know a few people that are single parents and they have partners that are single parents, and the demand for single occupancy housing is really high and the waiting lists are long, and they want to live together and they can't live together. They can't be that, again, if you want to go into that nice kind of qualitative human experience of being in a family unit, of growing up with two parents, I think anyone right of the centre would talk about broken families, that kind of. It's easy to appeal to these crappy arguments about how awful the poor are if you want to convince them that they should agree with basic income. I don't know if you can tell I'm a little bit left. So let's make payment non-withdrawable, unconditional, not means tested, and then let people live the lives they want to live together, to free up more properties for more people to live in, to provide a better quality of life for children, to reduce the cost of childcare, because if one person can babysit, the other person can go out to work. There's so many great reasons for basic income that I think it's too easy just to talk about tax and the financial implications of things like that. We need to focus very much on the human experience and the quality of life that it would bring with it. Because when we're able to go to education, we're able to live with our partners, we're able to spend our time participating in the community, coming to events like this because we're not racked by anxiety, racked and trapped in our houses, no disposable income, and you look at the bus ticket and you go, I actually can't afford the bus, I'll stay in. You look at the value that, look at the value that people provide when they're able to interact with other people and support them and have community events and come to things like this. There's like street parties and things that happen in my neighborhood that you need free time and you need that kind of emotional resilience to bring about. And so let's talk a bit about emotional resilience. Let's talk a bit about mental health. The government's calculated that the cost of mental health to the economy is like 1.9 billion, and it rises to about 3 billion in Scotland when you include economic impact. If you look at, that's a snapshot of like one thing. If you look at treatment for anxiety, it's twice as high in at least in the most deprived areas. I hope I don't get that wrong. If I get it wrong, it's always the least deprived that has it worse. If anyone watching and wondering. In the most deprived areas, it's twice as high as in the least deprived. And suicide rates are 4 times as high. I don't think anyone could think that that's genetic or personal choice. It's obvious that inequality is driving poor health. It's evident and it's obvious and it's logical. And if you care about reducing the cost of poor health and you're trying to get people into work, you have to start looking at a basic income. When you look at sources of stress, half of workers, I can't believe it's only half, but half of workers report stressed at work. And the leading cause of stress for them at work is job insecurity. And job insecurity means losing your job, losing your income. Providing a safety net so you know that if you lose your income, you can still buy food and pay the rent while you look for work. And what's that going to do to levels of stress? It's going to get us back to the point where maybe anxiety is as much in the rich as it is in the poor, and suicide is down. And if you argue against that, then, are you arguing for poorer health? So let's look more broadly at health then. There are some figures when I was looking up and doing research for this kind of stuff that really shocked me. Are any of you familiar with the concept of healthy life expectancy? It's basically the age at which you live to until you get ill and you never get better. So that means you get either crap neck, crap back, crap knees, whatever it is, you are just become chronically ill and you're just always getting medical treatment for something. In the most deprived areas of Scotland, life expectancy, the age that you die, is only about 7 years less. God, that's shocking. 7 years less for the poorest men and 4 years less for the poorest women. But healthy life expectancy is 48 in the most deprived areas of Scotland. 48 years old. That's going to do a lot for equality. And it's going to do a lot for gender equality as well. I think that where women are able to stand up to the boss and go, it's not right that I'm paid less than my co-workers, and they can realistically leave, I think it's going to do a lot for equality in the workplace. People like it, but there we go. In areas of really high unemployment, why is it that we think that reducing the amount of money in that area is going to increase the number of jobs or help businesses thrive? If you want to decrease unemployment and spur job creation in communities of high unemployment, you need to put money into that community so that the businesses that are there can sell their shit and hire workers. I mean, that is not a complex argument. That's what we have with quantitative easing. You chuck all this money in the economy and you're great, everyone can buy things. But if we put that money at the bottom, people aren't going to save it. If you give money to the rich people, give them tax breaks, they stick it in a bank because they're already spending money on their lives and they're fine. You give it to people who desperately need to buy things to support themselves, that money just goes right into local businesses. If you want to stimulate the economy, you put money in and you give them the ability to buy things and support themselves. So if you care about unemployment, if you care about job creation, economic stimulus, those are all, well, they should be all the way across, but I associate them with kind of right of centre stuff. There's, again, great arguments for introducing a basic income. So I've touched off on everything. I'm not sure if that was 12, but it was close enough for me. I'll talk a bit about our organisation and what it is that we're trying to do and what we're really looking for from yourselves and the people that you know. Now, we're not a political organisation. The role of CBINs is to educate people and to help individuals become advocates and themselves lobby and agitate for social change. So what we do, as well as putting on events, we've got an upcoming event in Fife on the 28th of January. And to demonstrate that it's been taken seriously, we're having that meeting with Fife Council, with people from the Inland Revenue, people from DWP will be speaking. We've got a world expert who's one of the co-chairs of the Basic Income Earth Network, who are a big deal. If you don't know about them, check them out. So that's in Fife, in Kelty Community Centre. If any of you want to come on to that, it'd be really interesting to learn about how Fife and the Fair Fife Commission are now looking at how they can introduce a basic income pilot here, just across the Firth. I think that's fantastic. I think that the more that people know about that, the more they're able to raise demand in their own areas. Because I think if you're looking across at Fife, you might be thinking, why are they doing it there and not here? I think that it's going to bring with it loads of benefits. I think that we should be pushing for that more widely. So come along to that. But what we really want to do is run workshops and training events. So I'm here tonight because I didn't used to know about basic income, and now I know about basic income, so now I'm telling you about basic income. We're putting on workshops so that you can do this. I'm not saying you have to stand in front of a million cameras and sweat buckets and get clammy palms. But evenings like tonight, and ideally when you're sitting at your Christmas dinner with your socially conservative uncle and grandma, or maybe just your dad who thinks you're wasting your life, you've got 12 arguments, one of which may resonate with them. So what we'd like is for individuals like yourselves to start engaging with us. So that can be coming to chat with me after this. This could be joining our mailing list. It could be connecting with us on Facebook and on Twitter. Facebook is obviously, when I track things and see what helps and get people to event, Facebook is just playing an absolute blinder. So if you can help us on there and start having conversations with us, we would like to provide workshops. We can come along, we can give you the kind of training that you need, give you the sort of academic stuff if you want it, help us that you can articulate the benefits. Now all of you are here at a community event to do something awesome and fantastic, and I'm certain this isn't the only thing that you guys do. I'm certain that you're in other groups. And I hope that based on the things that I've spoken about with you, that there are those groups that will also be interested in some of the aspects that basic income will bring with it. So what I'd ask is that if you want to help us raise awareness nationally so that people can agitate locally with their politicians and with their councils to try and get some basic income pilots on the go, just some feasibility studies, come and chat to me, get our mailing list, get with us online, get trained, hold local networks, and we'll support however we can, and we'll help us that this conversation is happening not just in the big cities in the Central Belt, but far away and up north, and not just because I want a road trip. So come chat to me after this. Thank you very much for listening, and I've probably taken my time slot, so apologies for that.
We do have some time for some questions, guys. There's a mic that's just set up there. If somebody wants to ask a question, just come up so it's recorded.
Yeah. If anyone wants to ask a really easy question, just go out there to the mic. Yeah.
I've written like 3 different things down. I'm just going to try and go with
I'll pick the easiest one.
Yeah, pretty much. Right, it seems that people don't believe automation or outsourcing is this is what you mentioned anyway. You said that, like, people don't really see automation or outsourcing as a problem until it threatens their career.
Yeah.
So how do we kind of try and articulate a case for it that's not... that can undercut that and be like, listen, we know that this might not be an immediate threat to you now, but it is going to be. Because obviously, like, it's something that, like, in a working class community, for example, people have noticed that automation and outsourcing is a serious problem, and it has been for a long time. But the stuff you're talking about with, like, algorithms doing...
Yeah.
I mean, there's... I don't know if anyone's heard, like, they've got a robot that can make music now. And it like, all they done was they piled hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, like, the entire back catalogue of the Beatles into this thing. And then it just churned out something that sounded exactly like a Beatles song. Arguably better than any Beatles song ever. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, right, so now you're like, everyone who's up there functioning on a more intellectual level as a career is their jobs are now under threat. So how do we undercut that and just tell them now so that we can get involved and push this?
Well, I mean, to a large part, the tech companies are doing that for us. I used to work for IBM, and they've made something called Watson, which won Jeopardy a few years ago. And I couldn't win Jeopardy, so I'm already fucked. So yeah, automation is coming. Artificial intelligence is on its way. The companies are demonstrating that and advocating for that. So you simply raise awareness of that, really, if you wanted to. I don't think anyone thinks it's impossible. I don't think anyone thinks it's impossible. So it's simply a matter of when. But also, one thing I would mention about automation is that it's not necessarily a bogeyman. I think that if your job is shit and menial and unrewarding, then perhaps you should be doing something better with your time. Maybe we should automate. You know, no one like begrudges the spade because they used to dig with their hands. It's like, if your job is shit, let's get rid of it. Let's do something more productive with your time. White collar work as well. People go, oh, it's not going to happen. Whatever. I don't want it to happen. What, half of people in the workplace are stressed, and they've got job insecurity. I think there was an article ages ago, and it said that 66% of people agreed with the statement that their job was bullshit, which made me wonder, who the hell is that fortunate 34%, and where are they working? So yeah, automation is coming. Artificial intelligence is coming. That's accepted. It's a case of when, not if. Automation isn't a bogeyman. It probably would release a lot of people to do more productive things with their time. Yeah, I don't...
So maybe try to make it like... trying to also push it forward as a positive argument rather than just the negative.
Yeah, absolutely is a positive argument. There's loads of people who'd rather not do their jobs, who should be doing something better with their time. They should be...
Because maybe quite a lot of people don't know. They're only seeing the bad end of it, and they're like, oh, this is taking my job.
Well, yeah, that's because
they think people are like, but if this happened, it could free you up to do something way more interesting with your time. And maybe people haven't made that argument to them first.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the argument about losing your job is that you think you're going to lose the money that goes along with that and the security. But, you know, if automation's coming, we're not advocating for automation, we're compensating for it. So if you're scared of automation, not wanting it's not going to help you. Yeah. Wanting a basic income might.
Cool. Cheers.
Any other questions, guys?
You're not going to point out a massive flaw in my argument, are you?
No, I'm just going to watch my words and ask the question specifically. So, you're talking about automation and the effect it's going to have in the future. And, say 2 years ago, I was freaking out as well. And I was going, oh God, what's my job going to be in 40 years? But what I found is when you look back at history, we've been through this several times before. People see machines coming in, they get scared. Even the word sabotage comes from when people would throw their shoes at the automated looms to destroy them. But again and again, history showed us people just upskill and do more complicated tasks that machines can't do. What makes you think history's wrong this time?
Yeah, no, I agree. There's that argument that, like, that sort of Malthusian argument that, you know, it's always the end of days and it never comes. This time round, I truly believe it is different. It's the fact that technology is moving to the point where they can compensate for the things the human mind has to do. So it's not about doing something faster than a human's hands can do. That's already happened. It comes back to that argument about someone who's designing and supervising robots. We're not going to have more robot designers than we currently have people doing stuff that could be automated away. I believe that it is going to be different this time simply because of the nature of work that can be taken away. So much of our work now is digital. So much of it is just simply working with an interface, which is why, again, outsourcing, things like that happen. we're not going to see. There will be new jobs. I'm not saying there won't be new jobs. I'm saying that there won't be enough new jobs. There'll be less jobs. And if we want to have a greater variety of human activity, we need to support that financially. We can't just have it to where, only the few only the software developers can be in work. So I guess that's my answer, is that the nature of this improvement is different. It's not going to bring with it increased productivity from humans. It will bring with it increased productivity from machines and factories and things like that. But at the end of the day, who's going to buy it if no one's got a salary? So I guess I agree with you. Yeah, we've seen productivity increase, but that's been based upon the work of additional people being in work. Productivity will increase now, but it's going to increase because of technological advances and autonomous work rather than from humans.
Okay, the second question was about the poverty trap. Essentially, they're in the poverty trap because they're trapped in poverty, and you made the argument it's essentially a vicious circle that keeps them in it. Mm-hmm. At what point does personal responsibility kick in?
It's an interesting question. At what point does personal responsibility kick in? I'm not a sociologist. I've done just enough of that I can bore someone at a Christmas party. I'm not here. That's a real kind of political stance. Whether you take sort of structure or agency, so are you constrained by the system prevented from being a good person, or whether you're lazy or shiftless. I don't believe, based on the people that I've met throughout my life, that everybody is desperate to be work shy and scrounging. I think that argument about, well, people aren't going to be work, they're just lazy buggers. Again, I think and this isn't criticism of you, it's a common argument, but I think it says a lot about the speaker, that's what they would do if they were in that situation. So I think the argument people say that people are just going to be shiftless, that, given the opportunity, they've chosen to be bad people. That doesn't bear out from the people that they know in their own lives. And if they wouldn't do it themselves, I think it's really sort of prejudice to think that other people would, and say, I'm not a bad guy, but they're bad guys. But then again, that's sort of, without getting my soapbox, here's my soapbox, without getting on a different soapbox, I'm not going to worry about the media narrative and the Daily Heil and things like that. But yeah, no, I don't think that is how people behave. And I don't think that anyone chooses poverty. I don't think that it's enjoyable enough to be remotely attractive. I think it ignores the value of work.
Okay.
Thanks very much for the question, man. Cheers. Anyone else got one? We've got time for one more. Time for one more. Daddy,
It's just a question about the pilots, the pilot in Fife. If you could tell us a bit more of that. I'm interested in who the population is going to be in terms of the community that will be selected to take part in that pilot. Is it going to be geographic, or is it going to be a specific group? If you've got any detail around that, I think it would just be useful for us to know a bit more about that, if you're there yet.
Yeah, it would be super interesting to know more about that. It's underarming the question, because you should all come to our event and find out. And that's not me being coy and trying to pretend like I've got something on my sleeve and I'm not showing it. The answer is I don't know. We're at the point of enthusiasm and appetite to investigate it. We're not at the point of implementing. I think that there's a role for us to listen to people who are thinking about it and what they think, but it's a dialogue, and we should be going there and making our voices heard about what we want to see. There's so many different ways it can manifest, and something I haven't really touched on is that we've got this horrible tendency, I think, in the progressive movements to focus on our differences and tear each other apart, because we think that a basic income should be slightly different to someone else's idea of a basic income. So I don't know the answer. I don't know who we should be focusing on. I think that we need to come together and discuss that. I think that events like the one in Fife are the right place to go to meet the people who are talking about that. And ideally, after the event, I'll be able to come back and give you all a massively comprehensive answer and look dead clever. So I think that's probably the last question, but I'll be lurking about drinking too much coffee. Everyone's got another. But yeah, thank you all very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Okay, so yeah, that was Ben Simmons. Guys, that's going to be getting a lot of traction in the future. Thanks very much for the questions as well, man. That was really, really good. If you could try and get as involved as possible. I know there's a lot of people from different political sort of backgrounds here, and it'd be really helpful if we can kind of put each other to test, because that's what the whole idea is about. But definitely get more involved in what Ben's doing. Or if you've been on the event page on Facebook at all, that all the information will be posted there. Workshops are very interesting. The next person.
Independence Live is a group of citizen livestream journalists. People like you are us. We livestream important events which the mainstream media ignore. Indie Live has livestreamed over 700 events since November 2013. Most past events are available to view for free from our website. To continue to raise the quality of our coverage, expand outreach, and develop much-needed digital infrastructure, we need money. Please consider supporting the ongoing activity of Indie Live by making a donation at www.independencelive.net.